Nia had always felt an inexplicable pull to her grandmother's attic, a place brimming with old relics and forgotten memories. Today, however, something felt different, almost as though the attic itself was calling her. As she stepped through the creaky doorway, dust motes swirled in the sunlight, casting soft golden beams across the room. Her eyes landed on an ornate vintage mirror, its frame etched with delicate vines and roses. She could almost hear the whispers of the past in the air. It was then that she noticed an old sealed box in the corner of the room. Her heart skipped a beat as she gently lifted the lid, revealing a lipstick, dark and enigmatic, its gold cap catching the sunlight like an ancient treasure. She instinctively knew that this was no ordinary lipstick. It was something far more powerful. A deep breath filled her chest as she held it in her hand, the weight of its mystery pressing upon her. A curious thought crossed her mind. What if this could change everything? Without hesitation, she uncapped it, feeling an electrifying surge as she applied the lipstick. The world around her seemed to pause. An unnerving silence stretched through the room, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. What happened next was beyond anything she could have imagined. Nia stood before the mirror, her hand still gripping the lipstick as the world around her began to tremble. The air felt thick, charged with an unexplainable energy. Her breath caught in her throat as her childhood dream, one she had long forgotten, began to take shape before her eyes. She had always imagined this moment, a wish fulfilled, a dream made real. But as the image in the mirror solidified, something else stirred within her. A fear, a question. What have I done? The reflection before her seemed to shimmer, distorted, like a memory slowly coming into focus. Her heart raced as she reached out to touch the glass, her fingertips trembling. The room had transformed. It was no longer just an attic. The walls, the light, everything had changed. A sinking feeling settled in her chest as she realized that this magic, this power, was far more unpredictable than she had ever imagined. Panic surged through Mia as she stepped back from the mirror, the lipstick still in her hand. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend what had just happened. The attic around her seemed alive, the air vibrating with an unseen force. Every object, every shadow felt charged with an unfamiliar energy. She reached for her phone, but the screen flickered as if the very fabric of reality was being stretched and pulled in ways she couldn't understand. The whispers of her past, the forgotten memories that had been buried deep inside her, began to resurface. They called to her, urging her to remember. What if this is more than a mistake? What if I've unleashed something that can never be undone? Her heart hammered in her chest, a mixture of fear, excitement, and regret. As she stood there clutching the lipstick, she realized that she had opened a door that would lead her into the unknown. Nia's mind raced as she struggled to make sense of the strange occurrences unfolding before her eyes. The lipstick, now in her hand, seemed to pulse with energy, as though it had a life of its own. Her pulse quickened as the realization dawned on her. This wasn't just a simple trinket. It was something far more dangerous, a catalyst for changes she couldn't begin to control. Her thoughts spiraled back to her childhood, to the forgotten wish she had made all those years ago. What if this is the price of my desire? The lipstick had brought her dream to life, but it had also unlocked something far darker. She had wished for something. She wasn't sure what exactly, but now she saw the consequences, the reality of her actions unfolding in front of her. There was no turning back. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. The attic around her pulsed with energy, and she knew that this moment would change everything. With shaking hands, Mia set the lipstick down on an old wooden table, her mind racing. Her emotions were a whirlwind, fear, awe, regret, and excitement, all mixed together in a chaotic storm. She couldn't tell if she had made a terrible mistake, or if this was the opportunity of a lifetime. The power of the lipstick was undeniable, and now she had to face the consequences of her curiosity. The world felt different, more alive, more tangible, and yet strangely out of reach. The room seemed to pulse with energy, the very walls alive with an unspoken tension. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. There was no going back. Whatever happened next, she had to be ready. With one final glance at the lipstick, she made a decision. "I'll see this through," she thought. "Whatever it takes." Mia's life began to change in ways she couldn't control. At first, the magic of the lipstick seemed like a gift, a way to make her dreams come true. She had wished for fame, recognition, and wealth, and each one of those desires manifested in astonishing ways. She was invited to high-end events, her name began to be known, and money flowed into her bank account like never before. But what seemed like the perfect life quickly started to feel hollow. The more she gained, the emptier she became. People admired her, but only for the image she projected. They didn't know the real Maya, the woman who was struggling with an inner emptiness, a loneliness that wasn't filled by any amount of external success. At night, when the lights dimmed and the crowds dispersed, the weight of her wishes settled on her heart. "Is this really what I wanted?" she would ask herself, but it was too late. She had chosen the path of desire, and now it was too late to turn back. As the days passed, Mia's internal battle intensified. The desires she once thought would bring her happiness only magnified her emptiness. Her life, once simple and content, had turned into a whirlwind of social events, meetings, and lavish luxuries. She began to feel disconnected from herself, as if the woman who had once dreamed of a quiet, peaceful life had been replaced by someone else. Someone who craved attention, success, and more. Her sleep became restless, haunted by nightmares that felt too real. Faces from her past appeared, people she had hurt or left behind in pursuit of her dreams. They whispered to her, accusing her of losing herself. What if all of this isn't real? She wondered, staring at herself in the mirror, unable to recognize the woman she had become. The lipstick, once a symbol of power, now felt like a burden she couldn't escape. One evening, as Mia walked through the city, she found herself near an old, familiar park, a place she hadn't visited in years. The soft rustling of leaves in the wind brought a sense of nostalgia, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. She had once come here to escape, to think, to dream without the pressures of the world around her. But now, everything felt different. The magic of the lipstick had opened a door she couldn't close, and her life was spiraling out of control. She sat on a bench, staring up at the moon, its silver light casting a peaceful glow over the world. For a brief moment, Mia felt the weight of her desires lift, as if the lipstick's power had no hold on her here. But that fleeting peace was shattered when she heard a voice behind her. It was a soft, familiar voice, one she hadn't heard in years. "You've changed, Mia," it said. It was the voice of her grandmother, the one who had always told her to be careful of what she wished for. The voice behind her startled Mia, and she turned around quickly, half expecting to see her grandmother standing there. But there was no one. The park was empty, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the wind. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Had it been a memory? A hallucination? Mia didn't know, but the words lingered in her mind. "You've changed, Mia." It was a warning, a reminder of the path she had chosen. Her grandmother had always spoken of the dangers of getting too close to desire, of how it could consume a person. Mia had dismissed those warnings when she was younger, believing that she could handle it, believing that her wishes were harmless. But now, as she sat alone in the park, the weight of her choices pressed heavily on her chest. She had asked for everything, and now it seemed as though the universe was showing her the cost. But the hardest part was realizing that she wasn't sure if she could undo what she had done. The next morning, Mia woke up to a world that felt even more distant. The glamorous life she had once dreamt of now felt like a cage, one that she had willingly locked herself into. The lipstick, once a symbol of power, now seemed like a reminder of her deepest fears. She no longer wanted the fame or the wealth. She wanted to be free, to find the peace that had once seemed so elusive. But the lipstick had changed everything. It had brought her closer to her dreams, but in doing so, it had also brought her closer to her fears and regrets. As she stared out the window, the weight of her desires pressing on her chest, Mia realized that she couldn't keep running from herself. The time had come to confront what she had become. But she wasn't sure she was strong enough to face it. Mia couldn't escape the consequences of her wishes. The world she had crafted around her began to unravel. Each day, the strange power of the lipstick seemed to grow stronger, and the things she had once thought of as blessings became burdens. She had wished for wealth, but now it felt like nothing more than a gilded cage. Her fame, which once filled her with pride, now suffocated her. The people who surrounded her, those who once adored her for the image she projected, now only saw the version of herself that was created by her desires. Her heart ached with the isolation of it all. It was no longer about what she had. It was about what she had lost. The lipstick had given her everything she thought she wanted, but at what cost? Mia stared at the reflection of herself in the mirror. She didn't recognize the woman looking back. It wasn't her. It was a stranger, a mere shadow of the person she used to be. Mia's thoughts turned inward, battling with the relentless urge to fix everything. She had thought the lipstick would make her happy, that it would be the key to fulfilling her deepest desires. But now, it felt more like a curse. One night, as she sat alone in her luxurious penthouse, staring at the lipstick in her hand, a sudden realization struck her. The lipstick wasn't just granting wishes, it was altering her very essence, turning her into a person who no longer resembled the woman she had once been. The material world she had built around her, with its endless fame and wealth, had begun to feel increasingly shallow, as if it was all a facade she was trapped in. Her every thought, her every action, seemed to be driven by a need for validation. What had once been a tool for her dreams had become the embodiment of her deepest fears, of losing herself. The realization hit her like a wave, and with it came an overwhelming sense of dread. Had I sacrificed everything for this? The tension of the past weeks began to break Mia down. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, everything felt distant, as if she were watching her life unfold from outside her body. The world that had once seemed so full of promise now seemed like a maze she couldn't escape. In a moment of desperation, Mia called her childhood friend, Sarah. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Mia's life had taken a dramatic turn. But now, she needed someone to remind her of who she used to be, someone to ground her. When Sarah arrived, Mia felt the weight of her isolation lift slightly. Sarah's presence was a comforting reminder of the life Mia had left behind. As they sat together, Mia confessed the truth, the real reason behind her downfall. She explained how the lipstick had given her everything she thought she wanted, but at the cost of her own identity. "I don't know who I am anymore," Mia said, her voice trembling. Sarah looked at her with deep concern. "You've lost yourself in trying to be someone else," Sarah said softly. "You need to find a way back, Mia." After her conversation with Sarah, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she had reached the edge of something crucial. She had been living for others, seeking approval, filling a void with fleeting external accomplishments. But in the silence of the night, as she sat alone once again, Mia realized something pivotal. The lipstick hadn't just fulfilled her wishes, it had exposed the emptiness she had been running from. It was her own desire for control, for validation, that had driven her to this point. She had allowed herself to be consumed by the power of her wishes, believing they would bring her happiness, when in fact, they only brought pain. The realization was both liberating and terrifying. Mia understood now that she had to stop seeking external fulfillment and start looking inward, confronting her own fears and desires. With trembling hands, she set the lipstick down, a symbolic act of letting go. It was time to stop running and face what she had become. Mia made the decision. She had to let go of the lipstick, of the power it offered. But the fear of what that would mean for her was overwhelming. She had come so far after all. How could she face the world without the magic, without the glamour? But in her heart, she knew it was the only choice. She had to reclaim her identity, her true self, and stop relying on external forces to define her. The next morning, Mia walked into the city's bustling streets, feeling a strange sense of clarity amidst the chaos. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was seeing the world with new eyes. The pressures that had once weighed so heavily on her seemed a little lighter. She had started her journey to reclaim herself, not through desires, but through understanding. As the sun broke through the clouds, Mia took a deep breath. She was ready for whatever came next, but this time, she would face it on her own terms. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Mia stood before the mirror once again, lipstick in hand. The reflection staring back at her was a stranger, one she barely recognized. The power of the lipstick, which had once seemed like a solution to all her problems, now felt like a shackle. She had been living a life dictated by external desires, seeking approval from others, and attempting to fill an internal void with wealth, fame, and superficial success. But now, as she looked at the woman before her, Mia realized that she no longer wanted to be defined by these fleeting accomplishments. There was a choice in front of her, and for the first time, she truly understood the weight of it. The lipstick could grant her one last wish, one final opportunity to get everything she thought she wanted, but at what cost? Would it be worth it? Her hand shook as she held the lipstick up, knowing that the decision she made now would define the rest of her life. As Mia stared at the lipstick, the weight of her past decisions pressed down on her. She thought about all the people she had lost in her pursuit of fame, the relationships she had neglected, and the deep sense of disconnection that had come from her relentless search for external validation. Could one last wish really fix everything? She wondered. But deep down she knew that the lipstick wasn't the answer. It never had been. She had been looking for peace outside of herself, in all the wrong places. The lipstick had only mirrored her desires, magnifying her deepest fears. "I've been trying to control everything," she realized. But control is an illusion. The power she sought was not in the lipstick or in the material world, it was in letting go. In that moment, Mia understood that true freedom could only come from releasing her attachment to her desires, to her need for approval, and to the illusions of control that had governed her life. Mia's heart raced as she made the decision to destroy the lipstick. It was a terrifying thought, knowing that the power it held had been a crutch she had relied on for so long. But now, it was time to let go. With trembling hands, she raised the lipstick, and in a final act of surrender, crushed it beneath her foot. The moment she did, a wave of energy surged through the room, as if the universe itself was reacting to her decision. It wasn't just the lipstick that was being destroyed, it was the hold her desires had over her. The air around her seemed to shift, the tension in the room dissipating as she let go of the last remnant of her attachment. As the remnants of the lipstick lay in pieces on the floor, Mia stood still, her breathing heavy, but her heart light. The world around her seemed quieter, softer, as though she had stepped into a new reality, one where she no longer had to chase after fleeting desire. With the destruction of the lipstick came a deep sense of release. Mia felt the weight of her past choices lift off her shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, she could breathe deeply. She had chosen to let go, and in doing so, she had freed herself from the chains of her desires. But the path ahead was not easy. Mia knew that letting go was only the beginning. The true challenge lay in confronting the life she had built, the relationships she had neglected, the dreams that had turned into nightmares. As she stepped away from the remnants of the lipstick, Mia understood that healing was not an overnight process. But for the first time, she felt the quiet stirrings of hope. The journey ahead would be difficult, but it would be her journey, a journey defined by her own choices, her own values, and a renewed sense of self. As Mia stepped out into the world, she felt a sense of freedom she had never known before. The weight of her past, of her attachments had been lifted, and she was finally able to face the world with a new sense of clarity. The journey to reclaim herself had been difficult, but it was one she had embraced fully. She no longer sought validation from the outside world. The fame, the wealth, the approval, they no longer mattered. What mattered now was her own peace, her own understanding of who she was. As she walked through the city streets, Mia felt grounded, present, and alive. The world around her was still chaotic, but she no longer felt like a victim of it. For the first time, Mia felt in control, not of the world, but of her own life, her own choices. The power to shape her future lay within her, and with each step she moved forward with renewed purpose and strength. Mia woke up the next morning, with a renewed sense of purpose. The sun's rays streamed softly through her bedroom window, casting a warm, golden light over the room. It felt like the first real day of her life, one not dictated by external validation or the pressure to be someone she wasn't. She had walked away from the illusion of perfection and embraced the simplicity of being. The weight of her past decisions no longer seemed to haunt her. Instead, there was a quiet peace in the air. Her heart felt lighter, as if a deep, invisible burden had been lifted. She wasn't seeking approval from anyone anymore. Instead, Mia focused on what truly mattered, reconnecting with herself and rediscovering the things that brought her joy, without any external pressure or expectation. She stepped out of bed, a smile tugging at her lips, ready to embrace a new chapter of life, one defined by balance, mindfulness, and authenticity. Mia's relationships had changed too. The people in her life, who once saw her as the glamorous woman living a perfect life, now saw the real Mia, the woman who had gone through struggles and emerged stronger, with a clearer sense of self. She no longer felt the need to impress them or seek their approval. Instead, she sought genuine connections. Conversations were no longer filled with superficial chatter, but with depth and authenticity. With Sarah, her childhood friend, Mia found comfort in simply being. Their bond was no longer defined by the past or by Mia's external success, but by a shared understanding of life's complexities. With her family, Mia reconnected on a deeper level, healing old wounds. She realized that true happiness didn't come from external achievements, but from love, understanding, and acceptance. The weight of her past had been replaced by the joy of being truly seen. As the days passed, Mia's new perspective on life took root. She no longer saw the world through the lens of desires or unattainable goals. She understood that true fulfillment came from within, not from external sources. She began to embrace the small moments, the quiet mornings, the laughter shared with friends, and the satisfaction of a day well lived. She found joy in the simplest of things: a walk through the park, a cup of coffee, or a meaningful conversation. Her life felt full, not because she had everything, but because she had released the need for everything. Mia had stopped measuring her worth by her accomplishments or the opinions of others. Instead, she lived authentically, allowing her actions to align with her true self. In this peace, she discovered a profound sense of gratitude, a feeling she had long been disconnected from. This was the life she had been seeking all along. Mia's transformation was not just internal, it was reflected in the world around her. She no longer chased after fleeting dreams or coveted the illusions of perfection. Her life became one of balance, where ambition was tempered by mindfulness, and where success was measured by contentment, not accolades. She pursued her passions, not to prove anything, but because they brought her joy. She began working with charities, using her platform to make a difference without the need for recognition. Her heart was no longer focused on receiving external praise. Instead, it was full of love for the work itself and the people she could help. She had come full circle. The woman who had once sought everything from the outside was now content within herself. Mia knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she felt equipped to face them, not through the lens of desire, but with the clarity of self-awareness and peace. One evening, as Mia sat by the window, watching the sunset, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had once been consumed by the desire to control everything, to make her dreams come true at any cost. But now, she understood that true freedom came from letting go. It wasn't about relinquishing her ambitions, but about releasing her attachment to the outcome. The sunset, with its brilliant colors and soft fading light, reminded her of the impermanence of everything. Life was fleeting, but in that fleeting nature, there was beauty. There was peace. Mia had found the balance between desire and detachment, between striving for goals and accepting the present moment. She had learned that true peace came from within, and that the key to happiness was not in the world's approval, but in her own acceptance of herself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mia smiled softly, knowing that she had come home to herself. Mia sat in quiet meditation, the soft hum of nature surrounding her. She had found a secluded spot by a peaceful lake, far from the hustle of the world. Here, the noise of life didn't intrude. The gentle ripples on the water mirrored her own calm, her thoughts becoming still. For the first time in a long time, Mia felt truly present. Her heart, which had once been clouded by desires and the constant chase for external approval, now beat in rhythm with the world around her. She had come to understand that the journey inward was the most transformative of all. She had fought to silence the distractions, to let go of the burdens of ambition and expectation. Now, in the stillness of this moment, Mia understood the true meaning of peace. It was not found in the outer world, but within. She had spent so long searching for something outside herself, only to realize that everything she needed was already inside her. As Mia meditated, a quiet voice within her spoke, soft but powerful. "This is it. This is what you have been searching for." She felt a deep, profound connection to the world around her, to the earth, the trees, the water. It was as if everything had come into alignment. The weight of her past struggles, the years of self-doubt and questioning, began to fade away. She was no longer a person defined by her achievements or her failures. She was simply a part of the universe, as fleeting and as infinite as the waves on the water. The realization struck her with gentle clarity. Life was not about what you could grasp, but about what you could release. The fear of loss, the anxiety about the future, these things were not her burden anymore. Mia had let go of the past, and in doing so, she had become free. She was no longer running, no longer striving. She had arrived. Days passed, and Mia's journey continued, yet now, every step felt different. Each moment, each interaction was no longer a task or a goal. It was an opportunity to embrace the present. She found herself walking through life with a sense of gratitude, as though each experience, whether good or bad, was a gift. She no longer measured her worth by her success or failure. Instead, she embraced the flow of life with open arms. The world no longer felt like something she had to control. It was simply there, unfolding in its own time. Mia now understood that she was not the creator of her circumstances. She was the observer. And in observing, she found peace. There was no need to resist or fight. The beauty of life was in its natural flow, its impermanence, and in her ability to let go. With each passing day, Mia felt more aligned with herself and the world around her, understanding that true happiness came not from achieving perfection, but from accepting life as it was. Mia's life was no longer ruled by the frantic need to accomplish, to be validated, or to seek external rewards. She understood now that every moment she spent running after these things had been a distraction from the truth that life was fleeting, but that didn't mean it was empty. Life was filled with love, with connection, with simplicity. Mia had learned to embrace impermanence, knowing that it was the very essence of life. She now lived each day with purpose, not from a place of fear or desire, but from a place of love and acceptance. She was no longer afraid of the unknown, for she understood that it was part of the journey. The mystery of life, with its uncertainties and changes, was what made it beautiful. Mia no longer needed to hold on to anything, because she had learned to trust that everything would come and go in its own time. And in this trust, she found an overwhelming sense of peace. As Mia looked out over the horizon, she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path that had brought her here. She had faced her fears, her attachments, and had come to understand that true peace was not found in the external world, but within. It wasn't about the perfect life or the perfect outcome. It was about the journey itself. Mia had learned to let go, to release her need for control. And in doing so, she had found a peace that transcended all the noise of the world. The journey would continue, but now, Mia knew that she was no longer running. She had arrived at a place of stillness, a place of self-awareness, and the peace she had been seeking was now a part of her. As she took a deep breath, Mia felt the freedom to simply be. She had learned the most important lesson of all, to live fully in the present moment, embracing all that came her way with love, compassion, and understanding. Mia stood in the midst of a vast field, the wind softly blowing through the grass. The air was crisp, and the scent of earth and nature filled her lungs. It was a simple moment, but it felt like everything had come together. There were no crowds, no expectations, no need for validation, just the peaceful solitude of nature. For the first time in years, Mia felt completely at home within herself. The world around her felt vast, yet her place in it was clear. She had let go of everything she thought she needed, and had found a deep connection to the present moment. The journey had been long, filled with struggles, revelations, and moments of clarity. But now, in this moment, Mia realized that she was exactly where she was meant to be. As she looked out at the horizon, the sun beginning to set, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. "This is enough," she thought. "I am enough." As Mia walked through the field, she reflected on the path that had led her here. She had once been consumed by desires, by the constant need to prove herself to the world. But now, she understood that true fulfillment wasn't about what she achieved, or what others thought of her. It was about living authentically, embracing each moment, and being at peace with who she was. She had learned that life's impermanence was not something to fear, but something to embrace. Every moment, every breath was precious, and Mia had finally learned to live fully in each one. As she continued walking, her footsteps light on the earth, she felt a deep connection to everything around her, the wind, the grass, the earth beneath her feet. She was no longer a separate entity, but part of the great flow of life, ever changing, ever evolving. The wind picked up, and Mia paused to stand at the top of a small hill, looking out at the world stretching before her. It was a view that felt both familiar and new, as though she was seeing everything for the first time. The world, with all its beauty and complexity, no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, it felt peaceful, like a vast interconnected web where everything had its place. Mia understood now that she didn't need to control anything. Life had a way of unfolding exactly as it was meant to. The challenges she had faced, the choices she had made, had all led her to this point of peace. And from here, Mia knew that no matter what the future held, she would be able to face it with grace, acceptance, and an open heart. The wind rustled her hair, and for a moment, Mia felt as if the entire world had paused, just for her. As the sun sank lower in the sky, Mia sat on a large rock at the edge of the field, her legs crossed, and her hands resting in her lap. The light around her softened, casting a warm glow on the earth. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath in, and letting it out slowly. She had spent so much of her life searching, but now she realized that the search had never been about finding something external. It had always been about discovering herself. She had found peace, not in the things she had acquired, but in the quiet acceptance of who she was, right here, right now. The world around her was still, but within her, there was a sense of movement, of change. Mia was not the same person who had once been consumed by desires. She had grown, and in that growth, she had found a deeper connection to herself and to the world around her. The sky grew darker, and the stars began to twinkle above, as if in silent celebration of the journey Mia had made. She stood up slowly, feeling the earth beneath her feet, grounding herself in the present moment. The night was quiet, and the only sound was the soft rustling of the grass in the breeze. Mia took one last look at the horizon, a peaceful smile on her face. She had come full circle, from a place of confusion and longing to a place of acceptance and understanding. The path had been long, but every step had been worth it. With a deep breath, Mia whispered to herself, "This is enough. I am enough." And with that, she turned and walked into the night, her heart light, her mind clear, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that the journey would continue, but now she was ready to face it with open arms and an open heart.